Horizon Chess, and this is why the Dark Angels were the most powerful legion. Warhammer 40k lore by the channel Major Kill. Yeah, the first and in this case the best legion were the Dark Angels, led by the legendary Primarch Lionel Johnson. This video is like 6 or so months old, so this is before the Lionel Johnson return was announced. Yeah, so I knew somewhat about Dark Angels and how serious they are, let's just say. Is that even fair to say? Aren't everybody serious? Yeah, it's a grim dark world. But yeah, so Dark Angels are badass, but I didn't know they were the most powerful legion. If they are the most powerful legion, that would make sense, like why Lionel Johnson would be one of the most powerful Primarch, I guess. Yeah, obviously Sanguinius is like the golden child or whatever, right? But yeah, Lionel Johnson would, I saw the Lionel Johnson video from Major Kill, and the history tells me how serious he is, right? Sanguinius feels like he was just perfect. He was born perfect. Everything was perfect. Well, Lionel Johnson feels like somebody who worked for it, who's serious, and who's really competent and great, right? So yeah, the Dark Angels. First of all, since Lionel Johnson is back now, right? What is that going to do? Like Dark Angels with now their Primarch, how badass events are going to unfold now. Now, Gilliman is not the only one there, right? So most badass, conquering, or just terminating type of element of the Imperium is now gonna be in the hand of Lionel Johnson, right? Because Gilliman is gonna be like commander type of guy who's gonna, like a war table kind of guy who's gonna see. Even though Lionel Johnson was like the more favored one as a battle master, even though the title went to Horus. So I don't know. Maybe Gilliman would step aside and Lionel Johnson would be the guy who called the shots or whatever. I don't know. But it would be great if Gilliman does that, because he's great at micromanaging shit, while Lionel Johnson feels like on the field type of guy who kicks everybody's ass. So yeah, it's really fun, how things are going to unfold in future. So yeah, let's watch this one. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't like, subscribe, so I know which type of videos to react to more. I love Warhammer, if it's not obvious already. It's really hard to find good channels like Major Kill, basically, especially with a shorter time frame type of videos, like 10-15 minutes, right? Bricky sometimes does it, right? I know he has a podcast, but that's a podcast like hour plus. Lutin is also hour plus type of guy. If you know any channel like Major Kill who explains things great, but is in a short length, like 10-20 minutes, I will definitely comment down, because I don't know any, right? Every channel I know is like an hour long. Major Kill is the only one that I know of. So yeah, let's watch it.
That both the Dark Angels and their Primarch, the Lion, are my favorite legion. This might make this video seem a bit of a biased kiss-ass, but after spending a lot of time with the Horus Heresy lore recently, reading over like a dozen Heresy books, Primarch books, and short stories, it's become abundantly clear that not every legion was made equal.
Maybe I should read those books,
legions are just like straight up better than others. Whether it be due to the power and influence of their Primarch or the legion's own tactics and culture, there is just like a definitive tier list. At the top of that list is the Dark Angels. The Dark Angels have overcome foes that 100% would have spelt the extinction of lesser legions. The Rungdung would have annihilated the Emperor's children. The Crave would have slaughtered the White Scars. Yet against the bastion of the Dark Angels, these unstoppable forces were crushed. There is a reason why the Emperor chose the Dark Angels as his super weapon. It's because they were the only ones that had the discipline, restraint, and will to use such messed up weapons of war. Before we get started, sometimes the stars align and brands that I've been a customer for years reach out to me. These are my favorite because I already promote these brands to my mates, so why not make money promoting it to you guys? The best example is today's sponsor, HelloFresh. I don't say this lightly.
Look, Imperial Fist and people like that, basically great at siege and things like that. All the legions would have their pros and cons, but I guess Dark Angels, the word dark in it, I'm guessing would have just the right things for questionable things, like you said, using certain type of weapon, making certain type of decision. I guess that would give them just the right edge to be effective more than everybody else. Because let's be honest, all the legions would be badass at that high level, right? That would make sense, but everybody would have their pros and cons. I guess Dark Angels would be, let's just say, more dark than your average dark in the grim world. Who knows?
HelloFresh has made a massive impact on my life. As I work out every day, diet is a big thing for me. I tried living off microwave meals but got sick of them, then tried to cook food, but I didn't really know what I was doing or how to make it balanced. Also, it tasted like shit. Ordering food 24/7 is a bad idea for my bank account and waistline. Then I got onto HelloFresh and never looked back, as it literally solves all these issues. A service which drops off fresh ingredients to your doorstep, as well as a simple guide on how to cook each meal. The meals are delicious, never get old due to their variety and freshness, and have great macros. Not to mention they only take like half an hour to cook per meal, shorter than it takes for a food delivery. So not only am I saving money, getting bigger and better meals, but I've also learned how to cook, which is a massive boost on your quest to get laid. Chicks love a man that can cook. So to save your time, effort, macros, and waistline, use my link and code POGMAJOROCT65. It should auto apply if you use my link. It'll save you 65% off and free shipping. God damn, you'd have to be dumber than a drongo that got donked with a didgeridoo to turn that one down. Cheers to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over why the Dark Angels and their Primarch were the greatest legion, picking out their highlights, victories, and obscene weaponry rather than, just retelling their lore. A key part of this video is how powerful the Dark Angels were, not currently are. Their modern day chapter is a bit of a meme, and not in a good way. So we'll be putting the focus on them during the Crusade and the Heresy. Let's
maybe Lionel will, bring them back to their former glory.
Get into it. The Dark Angels put a lot of pride and emphasis on the fact that they were the first legion, the Astartes whom all others are just mere copies of. Their roots go all the way back into the Unification Wars. They were the legion that helped put down the Thunder Warriors Rebellion. For as long as the galaxy has had Astartes, it has had Dark Angels. As the Dark Angels were the Emperor's first and most numerous Astartes legion, they were the first to be tasked with all the really fucked up missions, killing witch lords, destroying tainted lands, being exposed to a lot of unpleasant Xeno shit that would drive others insane. As such, they became very good at keeping secrets. The things they fought and killed.
Living at this thread, every other legion just meets in some kind of a hall or something, talks about this and that, and Dark Angels sitting in the corner just like this with head below. You don't know what I've seen.
Would not be recorded in the annals of history, as they were not glorious victories, more so ruthless purgings that had to be done. The First Legion were reliable, effective, and didn't gossip. Small talk was a no-no for the Dark Angels, and to discourage non-superhumans from trying to even talk with them, they began adorning their armor with skulls, bones, and other aspects of death. They truly were the Emperor's own angels of death. Whilst other legions were holding parades on easily compliant human worlds, the Dark Angels were sent to root out the galaxy's monsters from their own decrepit dens. So as we see, even prior to the discovery of their Primarch, the Dark Angels were one of the first and foremost legions, the Emperor's favorite even. This is heavily contrasted to the Blood Angels, who are a bunch of fuckhead berserkers that would have made Angron wet, or the White Scars, who were so scattered that they felt no camaraderie with their own legion, or even the Raven Guard, who were basically just Horus's stealth specialists at this point. Not to mention the borderline extinct Thousand Sons and Emperor's Children. However, when they found their Primarch, they went balls to the walls. Despite being found a bit later on than others, including Horus, the line was able to rapidly take over his legion and raise its effectiveness to a point that within a few years, his tally of victories had caught up to and potentially even surpassed Horus's.
Knowing Lionel's basically origin story, imagine him getting this legion like, okay, here's your Dark Angels. They're like, finally some competent people, right? I'm glad I'm not stuck with some idiots, right? Because this Dark Angels fits so well with Lionel Johnson, how he has achieved and rose up, I guess.
Ditched the Legion's death-like visage and installed his own knightly and honourable aesthetic in its stead. Unlike a few of the other legions, such as the Death Guard or the World Eaters, whose meeting with their Primarchs was jarring and actually set the Legion back, the line was able to smoothly combine the Dark Angel's grim and thankless determination with the honour and culture of Caliban. Both Caliban and the Dark Angels were great at keeping secrets, so this gelled together really well. With the line at their head, the Dark Angels were set to easily overtake the Ultramarines and the Lunar Wolves' glories to become the indisputable Master Legion. Then, the Rundung happened. Mankind encountered a Xeno race so powerful that it threatened to destroy the Imperium then and there. It's actually strongly theorized that it was the Rundung who caused the demise of at least one of the lost Primarchs. To face this apocalyptic threat, the Dark Angels were chosen by the Emperor as humanity's champion, to spearhead the counterattack. Although there were 9 other legions that ended up getting involved, the Dark Angels took the brunt of it, losing 50,000 Astartes. No other legion came close to losing that many during the Great Crusade. To then ice it off, just after those massive losses, the Lion led his Dark Angels against the King of the Crave, the most powerful Xeno in the galaxy, losing over a third of his entire fleet's mortal crew and thousands more Astartes. Talk about a double kick to the fucking nuts. The Lunar Wolves and Ultramarines didn't surpass the Dark Angels because they were better, it was because the Dark Angels took on the most powerful enemies of mankind in the galaxy and got wounded as a result. Here's a fun little fact about the Angels' fight with the
What the fuck? Seriously, man. Imagine that. You do the biggest battle that could have been with the biggest casualties, and then other one just comes out shining with victories here, and they're like, we are the better. They're like, are you kidding me? It's like after World War II, right? Some small country rise up, gets better, accolades here and there, and just like, we are the best, we are the undisputed. Yeah, okay, I guess, the best one got damaged there. Yeah, this is so fucked up.
Crave. The Dark Angels are always given shit and memed for their secrecy. This is fair enough. The modern day Dark Angels are almost laughable with how over the top their secrecy is, but during the Crusade era it served them well. When one of the Angels, a Knight of the Centaurus, which was one of the many specialist orders in the Legion, had his mind combed by a Crave warrior, the Crave got extremely frustrated, as the Angel had no idea who his fellow Knights actually were, hence the Crave couldn't locate or lock onto them. On top of that, the only reason why the Dark Angels are able to use their forbidden arsenal without getting universally censured by the rest of the Imperium is because they don't even tell most of their own Legion what they have locked away. Speaking of which, what do they actually have locked away? Well, one of their spicier weapons are enslaved men of iron.
Yeah, it's a secrecy at a level that nobody even tells anyone shit, right? Like how to make sort of secret stay secret, don't tell anything, right? If you don't know the secret, you can't spill the secret.
Genuine AI warriors that have proven to be extremely effective against psychic enemies. They also have special guns and bullets that flay your soul from your body and destroy it, meaning unbreakable psychic barriers are suddenly very breakable. They were basically given all the weapons that still remained on Terra from the Dark Age of technology. The Emperor was actually going to use the Dark Angels and this ancient non-mechanicus technology to conquer Mars if the Martians weren't going to be his bitch. So that means the Emperor had given them tech that was beyond even Mars. When it came time for the Emperor to elect the Warmaster, quite a few people thought he would choose the Lion. The Lion did, at least, that's for sure. However, he ended up picking Horus instead. Why was that? Is it because Horus was a better Primarch? Fuck no. The Lion was a league above his brothers, except for maybe Sanguinius and Magnus. Being in the presence of the Lion was very intense. Some Astartes who had no issue looking into their own Primarch's eyes would have to fight the urge to kneel whenever they were in the presence of the Lion. It was said that the only Primarch who left the same impression as the Emperor was the Lion. He wasn't insecure, never doubted himself, and commanded absolute authority. Contrast that with Fulgrim, who was in a constant state of borderline meltdown over his insecurity, or Horus, whose insecurity and ego was exploited to turn him to chaos. The difference is startling. The Emperor knew this and even said to the Lion that one of the reasons why that he chose Horus as Warmaster is because Horus craves attention. He needs to be patted on the head and given a bone. However, the Lion doesn't. Loyalty and duty is its own reward.
Yeah, but maybe if he had made Lion the Warmaster, Lion would have more authority and maybe not so many Primarchs wouldn't have turned to the chaos. Since Horus had that authority, he was a battle master, right? And his insecurity basically turned to chaos, and lots of Primarchs listened to him, right? And that's how it bred. So maybe Lion was there instead of Horus, right? I mean, Horus wouldn't have been able to turn so many Primarchs. I mean, Horus wasn't in the center of it, but still, it had an effect on things, right? So I don't know. Maybe Horus wouldn't have been that strong.
Lion finds celebration and glory to be vain and unnecessary. He knows he's a fucking beast at what he does. He doesn't need a bunch of retards banging the drum to show him. A secondary reason as to why the Emperor didn't choose the Lion as Warmaster is because during the Emperor's future scrying and 4D chess game with Malkador, it was shown that whoever the Emperor picked as Warmaster would eventually betray the Imperium. So there's a good chance that the Emperor valued the Lion so much that he wouldn't risk losing him by placing him in that role. When the heresy broke out, all the traitor Primarchs were shit scared of the Dark Angels. The Blood Angels were tricked into a demonic ambush. Even the Ultramarines were thought to be easily beatable by the Wordbearers, but the Dark Angels, no. Horus literally did everything he could to get them out of the way and delay them. He sent them across the galaxy before the heresy, then he sent the Night Lords to slow them down. In response, the Dark Angels were able to ambush the Night Lords. Yes, They ambushed the Ambusher Legion, and they killed a shitload of them.
I mean, Dark Angels feels like, obviously they were the first one, but they feels like they are the most effective and most experienced, the overall, you know, powerful in that way. Every other legion's like, what the fuck? They don't want them against them. So, you know, their flaws basically, when it comes to battlefield, their flaws is very less, right? So it kind of makes sense. I mean, you know, they kick ass of everybody so far. Like he said, Night Lords, you know, I saw that in the other video. This is so fucked up. Imagine if they were there, right? They weren't delayed, right? The effects of that, how Horus Heresy would have gone, right? Because, you know, they are the oldest, they are the most disciplined as far as I can hear, right? And they would be the one that kick everybody's ass,
effectively sidelining them for the rest of the heresy. The line was also able to beat Conrad in a clean 1v1, despite Conrad's ability to see the future. The line had this uncanny ability with his sword, subconsciously changing his strokes mid-strike, which fucked with Conrad's foresight. Even Sanguinius was unsure if he would be able to beat Conrad.
Imagine that, you have your ability to see the future, only future you see is the lion basically shoving the sword in you every single time, doesn't matter what you do. It's like, I have the power to see the future. And the lion's like, I'm sure. Yeah, in all of those futures, I kick your ass.
But the line just like straight up did. With the Night Lords out of the way, Horus had to pray that the mega warp storm, cutting the galaxy in half, would be enough to hold them back. It was effective, but the line decided to destroy pretty much every trader world while he waited for the chance to breach the storm and reach Terra. Not only did that fuck with the trader supply lines of recruits, but it also meant they had virtually no strongholds to retreat to. This is why the trader legions suffered so many casualties on their way back to the Eye of Terror. If they had their homeworlds intact, maybe they could have mounted a defense and counterattack, but instead they had to leg it into the vicious and unknown territory of the Eye. When Horus discovered the line was only weeks away from Terra, he shat himself. If the line arrived, the siege would end in the Imperium's victory. Now think about all that, and then remember, he had this much of an impact on the heresy despite losing over 50,000 Marines just before it started. He was sent out of the way, then attacked by the Night Lords Legion and was stuck behind a warp storm. With them being so powerful, it's only fitting that the line and the Dark Angel's demise would not come from Xenos or other legions, but the Dark Angels itself. On his return to Caliban, the line was ambushed by fallen Dark Angels, being put into a coma at the heart of the Dark Angel's main ship. A coma he remains in to this day, but I believe won't last much longer. With the loss of their Primarch, the Dark Angels
he knew he was coming.
Their secrecy became a negative, as the shame of their own Legion brothers betraying the line shook them to their core. So whilst they may not be likable as a chapter, they are still wildly powerful, and if the line returns, unites the Dark Angel successors and combines them with the Fallen, he'll have a legion of angels numbering in the hundreds of thousands, a force that would shake the galaxy, either acting as salvation to mankind or as a challenge to
I mean, if they are this level of powerful, holy shit, Lion is back now, and if he reunites Dark Angels, I mean, that's like a massive edge to Imperium. Like, holy shit, 41st millennium would look completely different, right? I mean, Dark Angels, as far as I can see, is literally the most powerful legion that everybody feared. They were the most competent, they were the most badass. Lionel was also the same way that Primarch feared like that, and now he's back. If he reunites Dark Angels, that's it.
Guilliman's rule. This is why I'm so keen for the line's return. It wouldn't just be this boon for the Imperium, it would create a complicated, delicate situation. Maybe he even creates his own mini Imperium on the dark side of the galaxy. Regardless, the Lion and his Dark Angels were the best legion. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be.
Damn, that is just awesome. Yeah, well, there you go. I didn't know Dark Angels. I knew Dark Angels were like powerhouses, but I didn't know they were that level of powerhouses that everybody just pissed their pants. Every legion just seeing them. But yeah, somebody should create some kind of a game, if not game, some video that based on the lore and history of Warhammer, they should pit, legion versus legion and see in which type of scenarios which legion wins, and yeah, make videos like that. That would be so good, right? Because let's say Dark Angels are, sieging a fortress or something, but this fortress are guarded by Iron Fist or something, right? I mean, in this kind of scenarios, like who wins, who what, yeah. Well, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.